On the outside, the Swift sports a sleek and modern design. Suzuki have introduced a new Horizon design line that wraps around the vehicle, creating a sense of motion. Rounded shoulder lines give it a sporty edge, while the iconic Suzuki badge proudly sits at the front of the bonnet. Lower headlight positions and L-shaped daytime running lights not only enhance visibility, but also add a touch of sophistication. And check out those clear rear tailgate lights.
Good morning, this is ABC, Ballarat and Southwest Victoria News. I'm Charlotte Wilkes. Police have arrested a man after a chase through the Ballarat area at the weekend. Anna McGuinness reports.
Officers say they were called to reports of a stolen Toyota 86 at a reserve on Dowling Street in Wendouree about 11:40am on Saturday. A man is alleged to have fled the scene on foot and ran from officers through the suburbs of Wendouree, Lake Wendouree and Ballarat Central. The 29-year-old Canadian man was spotted in the garage of a Lexton Street property and arrested. Police were expected to interview the man on the weekend.
In an update, police say the man has been charged with multiple offences, including theft of a motor vehicle and committing an indictable offence whilst on bail. He will appear before the Ballarat Magistrates Court later today. Meanwhile, Ballarat police say they have recently received multiple reports of counterfeit money being distributed in the Ballarat area, specifically $50 notes. Police are encouraging businesses and customers to be aware of the presence of counterfeit currency currently circulating. A police spokesperson says the counterfeit notes are of high quality but can often look or feel slightly off, and are urging residents to speak with staff, friends and family about the issue. The Regional Australia Institute is calling for 2 and 5 new homes to be built in non-metro areas, with the latest data revealing a nearly 11% increase in residents moving to the regions.
In their latest report, the RAI say despite an increase in regional residents, the number of regional houses approved for development has decreased in Australia by 21% over the last 20 years. The Institute said 40% of the National Housing Accord's 1.2 million homes must be built in regional communities to address the housing shortfall. In Victoria, the regional population is expected to grow by 700,000 by 2051. Regional Australia Institute CEO Liz Ritchie is calling for the appointment of a National Regional Housing Commissioner.
Southwest Victorian communities now have increased access to psychological health services, with the Hamilton Mental Health and Wellbeing Centre officially open. The service offers mental health assessments, treatments, counselling and support for individuals and families. The $3.4 million federal government upgrade is designed to help attract and retain skilled mental health professionals in the region. National Rural Health Alliance Chief Executive Susie Teagan says it's a positive step for rural health.
This is necessary, it's needed, and it's designed to reduce the need for travel, and it is also designed to ensure that those people that often find it difficult to seek help for their mental health issues, to have something close by.
City of Ballarat data wants residents to get active after it found 62% of Ballarat men and 43% of women are obese or overweight. The council wants residents to commit to moving 75 times a day for 3 weeks as part of AusActive's Million Moves campaign. Starting September the 1st, participants will receive free access at certain local gyms, including the Ballarat Aquatic Centre. Ballarat's Evan Milne, who suffers from stiff person syndrome, which makes exercising challenging, is rallying locals to get involved.
Just make a commitment to try and get up and move. It's not only beneficial for your physical health, but for our mental well-being. When we're moving and getting some fresh air into our lungs, we feel better.
The Warrnambool City Council is urging pet owners to stay away from certain parklands as council prepares to begin its spring fox baiting program. Bait will be laid in areas west of Thunder Point, at Lake Protrobe, and on the foreshore from Pickering Point to the scrubland behind the skate park. A map is available on the council's website, but clear warning signs will also be installed near baiting areas. The program will run from September the 1st until the 26th, with pets required to stay away from baited areas until October the 24th to allow for any residual bait to be collected. A record number of Victorians died from overdoses in 2024, according to the latest data from the state's coroner's court, including the highest recorded deaths in a decade in Warrnambool. Laura Mayers reports.
The latest report from the Coroner's Court of Victoria shows overdose deaths peaked in 2024 with 584 deaths statewide. Of the nearly 600 deaths, 1 in 4 were from regional communities. 6 were from Warrnambool. The Western Regional Drug and Alcohol Centre says it's the highest recorded deaths by overdose in a decade in the coastal city. Moyne and Glenelg recorded 0 overdose deaths in 2024. There was 1 in Corangamite and a further 3 deaths in both Southern Grampians and the Colac Otways. Rad Health CEO Mark Powell says residential rehabilitation programs are needed to help break the cycle of addiction in the regions.
Support service Uniting Vic Tas says it's seen a significant reduction in funding for its emergency relief services across Victoria. Eden Hennanen reports.
Uniting has told the ABC it has lost money through federal government grants, which includes funding for emergency relief services. Uniting says despite a cut, it hopes to continue to operate 14 emergency relief sites across Victoria and Tasmania, including in Ballarat. However, the Ballarat service is likely to operate at a reduced capacity. Uniting says it is working to explore other funding opportunities. A federal government spokesperson says funding for the Ballarat region is overall increasing, and the number of organisations delivering services in the Ballarat region in Victoria will remain unchanged.
The Moorabool Shire Council is again calling on the EPA to fund the removal of toxic industrial waste on Shire land, after battling the environmental organisation over clearing costs. The matter has returned to VCAT after the council told ABC it would cost $500,000 for the organisation to clear the waste. Moorabool Shire says trailers of waste have now been removed, but some remain on the property. Mayor Paul Thatchell says the council fully expects the EPA to act on the leftover industrial waste that is inside the property boundary. The EPA say it has contacted council to explain that a VCAT suggestion of cost sharing was considered but was not possible. The peak body for seed potato growers is calling for intervention at the border to stop the mop top virus from travelling from Tasmania to the mainland. The virus, which has never been detected in Australia before, has been found in Tasmania and is known to distort and rot the skin and flesh of potatoes. There are no health risks associated with eating potatoes that have the disease. Australian Seed Potato Industry Certification Authority's General Manager, Dr. Nigel Crump, says the virus could have large impacts on growers and the agricultural industry.
Once we get this disease on the mainland, we'll have it forever. The virus survives in the soil within the spongospora, the pathogen that spreads it, for up to 20 to 30 years.
Researchers say native wildlife in Victoria's west are at severe risk following bushfires that ripped through the Grampians, Little Desert and Mount Cole Parks last summer. Wildlife ecologist at Federation University, Dr. Grant Palmer, says drought and further catastrophic fires could push already struggling species to the brink of extinction. Dr. Palmer says back-to-back bushfires in these state and national parks will severely impact habitat and food supply.
They're like sources in the landscape of high-quality habitats for these species, and they've suffered immensely at the hands of fire and now are recovering slowly in these drought conditions.
Simpson residents have lodged a petition with Corangamite Shire asking it to reconsider its stance on not subdividing houses on farms which have been sold to forestry companies in the region. The council had been opposing applications to subdivide houses from farms as a disincentive to timber plantation owners to replace the region's dairy farms. Petitioners say they would rather have people living in the houses as the region's population is in decline. CCTV has been installed in 5 Ballarat Good Start Early Learning Centres after allegations a regional Victorian childcare worker was accused of sexually assaulting 2 children and allegedly grooming another child. Eden Hennanen reports.
Good Start has told the ABC it has installed CCTV in 5 centres in the Ballarat area as part of an ongoing trial of cameras across its facilities. It comes after an ABC investigation found that Good Start Early Learning Centre was made aware of 12 allegations against the male worker, dating back to September 2023. The man worked at 5 Good Start Early Learning Centres in the Ballarat region between 2020 and 2024. During that intervening period, the man was accused of allegedly sexually abusing 2 children during a nappy change. Police said there was not enough evidence to charge him.
A man has been charged following reports of erratic driving on a Ballarat sporting ground at the weekend. Mackenzie Archer reports. Police say a stolen vehicle was seen driving erratically on Dowling Street in Wendouree on Saturday. Officers say the car later got stuck in an embankment while the driver was doing burnouts on a nearby sports ground. Police say the occupants ran away when officers arrived. A man was found hiding in a nearby private property where police arrested him. He was charged with a number of offences including motor vehicle theft and reckless conduct endangering life. The man was remanded in custody to appear in Ballarat Magistrates Court next month. New data released today shows property values and rents have continued to climb across Ballarat and Warrnambool as the number of available rentals decreases. Jean Bell reports.
The latest figures for July 2025 from property analytics company Cotality show Ballarat's median property values sit at $565,000, an increase of 25% in the past 5 years. Rents grew by nearly 27% to $440 per week in that time. The rental vacancy rate has decreased from this time last year, sitting at about 1.6%. In Warrnambool, median property values have shot up just over 47% to $605,000. Cotality's figures show rents have climbed just over 40% to about $570 per week. Just 1% of rental properties are vacant in Warrnambool.
Australian retailers say they're anticipating huge disruptions to their business as Australia Post is suspending most services to the United States ahead of new tariffs on low-value parcels. From this Friday, parcels valued under $800 US, or about $1,200 Australian dollars, imported into the US will attract tariffs or flat fees. Ballarat textile and quilt designer Emma Jansen says most of her customers are based in the US and that this tariff will hurt her business.
I package and sell to the US. At least nearly up to 70% of my business is US based. The Australian patchwork industry is quite a bit smaller than the US, so for me to make a successful living, I need to tap into that market.
Corangamite Shire Council has considered a petition asking it to change its stance on subdividing houses from farms sold to forestry companies, but it will not be changing its policy. The council has been seeking to avoid fragmentation of agricultural land by opposing the subdivision of houses from land bought by timber plantation owners. A petition to the council from Simpson residents say the loss of housing is leading to people leaving the area. At a meeting yesterday afternoon, Councillor Jamie Vogel said forestry companies need to be better corporate citizens and homes should be rented out instead of sitting vacant.
These houses could be homes for tradies, teachers, young families, retirees. They could bring life back to Simpson and surrounds without needing a single planning amendment.
Moyne Shire Council has signed on to be a member of the Great Ocean Road Regional Tourism Body for another 3 years at a cost of $80,000 per year. At a meeting yesterday afternoon, the council voted to enter a new agreement through to June 2028, with Councillor Susan Taylor elected as the council's representative on the board. Mayor Karen Foster says the partnership was vital in supporting the Shire's tourism industry. The latest bushfire outlook for spring predicts an increased risk for the drought-affected southwest and central areas. Laura Mayers reports.
The Australian and New Zealand National Council for Fire and Emergency Services has released its latest seasonal bushfire outlook for spring 2025. The outlook predicts an elevated fire risk for the southwest, west and central Victoria regions. The report states parts of Victoria have suffered the lowest on-record rainfall deficits in the last 18 months. Recent rainfall has only soaked the top layer of soil, and a lack of spring rainfall could mean grass and vegetation quickly dry out in warmer conditions. There is an above-average fire risk expected closer to summer.
A Ballarat-based youth worker says seeing LGBTQIA+ representation from public figures is essential for the rainbow community. Yesterday, former Ballarat man and ex-West Coast defender Mitch Brown became the AFL's first openly bisexual man in the league's 129-year history. Asha Buckmaster is the LGBTQIA+ community engagement worker for the Ballarat Q Hub and says representation and visibility is everything.
You can't be what you can't see. If you are a young person engaged in any form of organised sport, having someone stand up and be their true selves in a really brave and bold way is incredibly powerful and empowering.
A Federation University study has found that regional women believe that a gender gap impacts them and their communities. Eden Hennanen reports.
The study of 1,000 women revealed insights into the experiences, resilience and leadership of rural women, alongside the systematic challenges they face. Of the 1,000 participants surveyed, 41% felt they lacked the same opportunities for career advancement as men, and women aged between 30 to 39 and 50 to 59 expressed scepticism about receiving the same career prospects. 48% of regional and rural women aged under 60 believed they are encouraged in their pursuits. Women were also asked if they had ever downplayed their achievements, with the overwhelming majority reporting they had.
A Ballarat wildlife carer says 2025 has been one of the worst years she's ever seen for kangaroo strikes in the region. According to the latest data from the RACV, the top 10 suburbs for kangaroo-related crashes over the past 4 years includes Bacchus Marsh and Ballarat. There is an upcoming public hearing next Monday into the inquiry into wildlife road strikes in Victoria. Judith Delonte is a wildlife carer with the Ballarat Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation Group. She says she currently has 16 orphan joeys in her care.
With the drought, there's a lack of feed, and kangaroos and other wildlife are coming closer in and near roads to get feed, water, and they're also losing their natural habitat. They're getting disorientated and lost.
Southern Grampian Shire Council has announced it will advocate for passenger flight subsidies at the next Victorian Municipal Councils meeting in October. Council says it wants to grow its rural population and give people the option where a workforce can commute between the city and country. Mayor Dennis Heslin says the council is seeking a level playing field since other states already have access to rural flight subsidies.
There's people at council that tell me of the days where they used to just go down to Hamilton, fly into Melbourne for an appointment on a Friday, and they'd be back home by dinner. But that we don't have that service available at the moment. We don't have regional air services that are, accessible back into Melbourne on a regular basis at all.
Works are beginning on the final stage of the Daylesford water supply pipeline, and the full project is set to be complete by next year. The $25 million project will see a major upgrade to the Daylesford water treatment plant. It will connect to the Goldfields Super Pipe, which was a project that began in response to drought and precarious water availability across central Victoria in the early 2000s. Daylesford and Hepburn have been on stage 2 water restrictions since July. A bill which will see farmers fined if they block transmission companies from entering their property has been passed in the Upper House. Charmaine Manuel reports.
The Vic Grid Bill was passed in Parliament just before midnight yesterday.
It allows power companies easier access to properties to build transmission lines and towers, connecting new renewable energy farms to the power grid. However, the fine farmers will cop for refusing power companies entry has been reduced by about half, from the initial $12,210. It comes after a long battle from farmers who've been protesting against transmission lines on their land.
A 35-year-old Ballarat man has pleaded guilty to multiple charges relating to a triple car crash late last year, which led to his passenger becoming seriously injured. Laura Mayers reports.
Sebastopol man Daniel Quinlan yesterday pleaded guilty to several charges, including dangerous driving causing serious injury. Quinlan sped through a give way sign on Edward Street in Sebastopol, hitting two other vehicles in November last year. The man's passenger was trapped in the car and had to be removed by emergency services before being treated in a Melbourne hospital. Two other drivers were also injured. The court heard Quinlan was on methamphetamine at the time and has never held a valid driver's licence, and the car he was driving was stolen. He will return to court for sentencing.
A Winter Valley man has been sentenced and ordered to pay $6,000 after he was caught burning off construction and demolition waste last year. Eden Hennanen reports.
The EPA says it worked closely with the City of Ballarat to identify a person responsible for an illegal burn-off in July and August last year. The man was fined for both receiving and burning industrial waste and for failing to comply with a regulatory notice. The authority says burning construction and demolition waste poses a serious risk to human health, the environment and the safety of surrounding communities. The man was ordered to pay the court $3,000 and a further $3,000 to the EPA. Magistrate John Stratman told the court the man was just spared a conviction.
Police say a teenage driver will be charged after the Canadian man crashed into a light pole at a service station this week. The 19-year-old was driving along Skipton Street in Redan on Wednesday when the incident occurred. He was not injured as a result. Officers arrested the young offender at the scene. He was interviewed and is expected to be charged on summons. An agricultural trainer in drought-ravaged southwest Victoria says good analysis of data is crucial to farmers surviving dry spells. At the Rural Industries Skill Training Centre near Hamilton, students have been learning how to use the latest technology and techniques to track how weather's impacting their animals and pasture. Belinda Kim from RIST says it's important students make decisions based on evidence, not hope or gut instincts.
Data's driving their efficiency, their decision making, their profitability, productivity. That's the key aspects to actually being successful going forward. And if that means pivoting with what was traditionally done, well then that's what you need to do.
Exploration drilling for natural gas in the Otway Basin is due to begin in the coming months. Jean Bell reports.
US exploration company ConocoPhillips has announced drilling will begin off the coast of Port Campbell in mid-October. Drilling at a second separate location further northwest near Peterborough will commence between November and December. The company says necessary infrastructure for the rig will begin construction from mid-September, and the infrastructure will be removed from the ocean by March next year. Exclusion zones for marine vessels will be in place during this time.
Drought-hit farmers across Corangamite Shire will receive a 40% lump sum rebate on their 2025 to 2026 rates and municipal charges. The council has been allocated just over $5 million from the state government's $35.8 million funding package for selected southwest Victorian councils. At its meeting earlier this week, Council voted for a uniform allocation across all properties with a farm rate classification to ensure the payment is equitable. For more news, search for local ABC station online. ABC News.
Unleash your vehicle's power beyond limits. Discover our exclusive range of Yuasa automotive batteries, engineered for unparalleled reliability and performance to power your journey like never before. Battery World. Power your passion.